When one of the most famous men on the planet walked into a small church in Meridian, Mississippi, nobody expected him. Nobody had called ahead. Nobody had sent a car. Nobody had arranged a seat in the front row or cleared a path through the parking lot. It was a Saturday morning, February 4th, 2023, just after 10 a.m. The kind of cold, gray February morning where the sky sits low and heavy and the bare trees along the roadside look like they are holding their breath. Shaquille O'Neal, 7 feet 1 inch tall, 325 pounds, shoulders wide enough to block a doorway, ducked under the frame of the entrance to First Baptist Church of Meridian on 22nd Avenue and walked quietly to the back of the room. He wore a plain black suit. No jewelry, no watch. His size 23 shoes moved without a sound on the worn carpet. He sat in the last pew on the left side, alone. The church held about 180 people. Every seat was full. Flowers lined the altar, white lilies and yellow chrysanthemums, and a photograph sat on an easel near the pulpit. A man in his late 70s, thin face, kind eyes, white short-sleeved shirt and a whistle hanging around his neck, the way he always wore it. The photograph was of Coach Raymond Earl Tillman, 6 years old. Retired high school basketball coach, 31 years at Meridian High School, never won a state championship, never coached a player who made it to the pros, never had his name on a gymnasium or a scoreboard or a trophy case. He had taught geometry during the day and ran practice in the evenings and driven his own car to away games when the school budget ran short. He had retired in 2009 and spent the last 14 years of his life tending a small garden behind his house on 34th Street and attending every home game Meridian High played, sitting in the same bleacher seat 3rd row far left with a cup of coffee and a thermos. He died on January 29th, 2023. Heart failure, quietly in his own bed at 6:18 in the morning. His daughter, Patricia Tillman Boyd, 51, found him when she came to bring his breakfast. There was no obituary in any major newspaper. There was no viral post. There was no crowd outside the hospital. There was just a small church on 22nd Avenue filling up slowly on a cold Saturday morning with the people who had known Raymond Earl Tillman and loved him, and in the last pew on the left, a man nobody had invited. The people closest to Shaq did not know he was there. His publicist did not know. His assistant did not know. He had driven himself from the airport in a rental car, a gray sedan that looked almost comically small with him inside it. He had parked 2 blocks away and walked. He had not told anyone he was coming, because what was inside the pocket of his black suit jacket was something he had never shown anyone. Not his mother. Not his closest friends. Not a single person in 35 years. It was a letter, folded into quarters. The paper was soft from being handled so many times. The creases had gone almost transparent. The ink in some places had faded to a pale brown. But every word was still readable. Every single one. Shaq had read it so many times he did not need to unfold it anymore to know what it said, to understand why he drove to Meridian, Mississippi on a Saturday morning in February to sit in the back of a church for a man he had never met face to face. You have to go back. You have to go back past the 4 NBA championships, past the Hall of Fame, past the businesses and the television shows and the doctorate degree. You have to go back past all of it. You have to go back to the spring of 1988, to a military base in San Antonio, Texas, and a 16-year-old boy who was about to quit. Shaquille O'Neal was born on March 6, 1972 in Newark, New Jersey. His mother, Lucille O'Neal, raised him in the Central Ward, one of the toughest neighborhoods in the country. His stepfather, Sergeant Philip Harrison of the United States Army, moved the family from base to base, Germany, New Jersey, Texas. Shaq was always the new kid. Always the biggest person in any room. Always the one people stared at before they knew his name. By the time he was 13, he was already 6 feet tall. By 15, he was 6 feet 7. He had hands that could palm a basketball the way other kids palmed an orange. He had a wingspan that made coaches stop mid-sentence and stare. Every coach who saw him knew immediately. This boy was different. This boy was built for something, but Shaq did not feel built for something. He felt like a problem, too big for desks, too big for bus seats, too big for doorways. Other kids made comments. Teachers sometimes looked at him with something close to fear before they got to know him. He could not walk into a room without changing the room. And when you are 16 years old, all you want is to belong somewhere. All you want is to disappear into the middle of things and just be normal. In the spring of 1988, Shaq was attending Robert G. Cole High School on the Fort Sam Houston military base in San Antonio. He was playing basketball, but barely. His heart was not in it. He had gotten into 3 fights in 2 months. His grades were sliding. His stepfather, Philip, was stationed away that semester, and at home the tension was quiet and thick. Shaq was close to walking away from basketball entirely, close to walking away from a lot of things. His coach at Cole High School saw it. He could not fix it alone, so he did something unusual. He wrote a letter to a coach he had never met, a man he had only read about in a regional coaching newsletter, a man named Raymond Earl Tillman, who had been coaching at Meridian High School in Mississippi for 11 years and had a reputation not for producing great players but for keeping difficult ones. Coach, Tillman wrote back, not to the Cole High coach, to Shaq directly. The letter arrived on a Thursday afternoon in April. Shaq almost did not open it. The envelope had a Mississippi postmark and a name he did not recognize. He set it on his desk. He left it there for 2 days. On Saturday morning, he picked it up. He read it standing in his room with the window open and the smell of the base coming through the screen, cut grass and motor oil and something faintly like coffee from the building next door. The letter was 2 pages. Handwritten in blue ink, small, neat letters that tilted slightly to the right. Coach Tillman wrote that he had heard about Shaq from a colleague. He wrote that he had no reason to believe a 16-year-old boy in Texas would care what a coach in Mississippi had to say. But he wrote it anyway. He wrote, "I have coached for 11 years. I have had boys quit on me and boys who should have quit but didn't. The ones who stayed were not always the most talented. They were the ones who figured out, usually the hard way, that the size of your body has nothing to do with the size of your life. You were built to take up space in this world. The question is, what kind of space? I don't know you, but I know this. The fact that someone thought you were worth writing to tells me something. Don't waste that." He signed it. Raymond Tillman, Meridian, Mississippi. There was no phone number. No return address beyond the school. No ask for a response. Shaq read the letter 4 times that Saturday. He folded it into quarters and put it in the front pocket of his jeans. That night he went to practice. He did not quit. He never wrote back to Coach Tillman. He told himself he would. But the weeks passed and the season ended, and by summer they had moved again, and the moment closed the way moments do. But the letter stayed. Every move, every city, every season, the letter moved with him. From San Antonio to Baton Rouge to Orlando to Los Angeles to Miami. From a teenager's jeans pocket to a college dorm drawer to a leather wallet that had been replaced 4 times over 35 years. The wallet changed. The letter stayed. Shaq had tried to find Raymond Tillman once in 2014 through an assistant who made calls to Meridian High School. He was told Coach Tillman had retired. The assistant left a message. No call came back. Shaq let it go. Then on January 31st, 2023, 2 days after Raymond Tillman passed away, Shaq's longtime assistant Marcus Webb saw a small post on a local Mississippi community Facebook page. A woman named Patricia Tillman Boyd had posted a simple announcement. Her father, Raymond Earl Tillman, had passed. Services Saturday, February 4th, First Baptist Church of Meridian, 22nd Avenue. All who knew him were welcome. Marcus printed it. He walked into Shaq's office and set it on the desk without a word. Shaq looked at it for a long moment. He picked up his phone. He booked a flight to Jackson, Mississippi for Friday evening. He reserved a rental car. He told no one else. Now it was Saturday morning. The service had begun. A pastor with a slow, careful voice read from the book of John. A woman sang, unaccompanied, her voice rising and falling in the cold air of the church like something alive. 3 former players stood up and spoke. One of them, a man named Darius Coles, 44 years old, a plumber from Meridian, said that Coach Tillman had once driven 40 miles round trip on a Friday night to pick him up from a cousin's house when Darius called to say he was in a bad situation. He never mentioned it again. Darius said. Not once. He just showed up. In the last pew, Shaq sat very still. His hands were folded in his lap. His eyes were forward. He did not speak to anyone around him. A woman sitting 2 seats down glanced at him twice. She nudged her husband. Her husband looked. Then he looked again. He leaned toward her and whispered something. She covered her mouth with her hand. The word moved slowly through the back rows. Quietly, without disruption. Because this was a church, and these were people who understood that some moments were not about celebrity. When the pastor asked if anyone else wished to share a memory of Raymond Earl Tillman, there was a pause. A few people shifted in their seats. Patricia Tillman Boyd, seated in the front row in a dark blue dress, looked at her hands. Then the last pew creaked. Shaq stood up. All 7 feet 1 inch of him. He had to turn slightly sideways to step out into the aisle. He walked to the front of the church slowly. His shoes made no sound. The room had gone completely still. Not the polite still of a congregation waiting, something deeper. The still of people watching something they did not expect and could not quite explain. He reached the pulpit. He looked out at the room. He said, "My name is Shaquille O'Neal. I never met this man." The silence held. But he met me. 35 years ago, when I was 16 years old, and I was about to give up on everything, this man wrote me a letter. He didn't know me. He had no reason to write, but he did. Shaq reached into the pocket of his black jacket. He took out a folded piece of paper. The paper was soft and worn at the edges. He unfolded it carefully, the way you unfold something fragile. "I have carried this letter in my wallet for 35 years, he said. Through 4 NBA championships, through injuries and losses and everything in between. I have read it more times than I can count." He looked down at the paper. Then he looked up at Patricia Tillman Boyd in the front row. "I never wrote back," he said. "I have regretted that every year since." "I am sorry." Patricia pressed both hands over her mouth. Her shoulders began to shake. "Your father told me that the size of your body has nothing to do with the size of your life." Shaq's voice was steady, but only just. "I was 16. I needed someone to say that." He was the one who said it. He folded the letter. He walked down from the pulpit. He walked to the front row and stood before Patricia Tillman Boyd. He held out the letter with both hands. "I would like her to have this," he said quietly. "He should have it back." Patricia took the letter. Her hands were trembling. She looked up at him. She could not speak. Shaq nodded once. He walked back to the last pew. He sat down. He stayed until the service ended. Afterward, in the parking lot, Patricia found him standing beside his rental car. She still held the letter. She said, "He never told us about you. He never said a word." "He wouldn't," Shaq said. "That wasn't why he did it." Patricia looked at the letter in her hands. "He wrote thousands of these," she said. "Over the years. To boys he heard about. Players at other schools, kids in the community. He never kept track. He never followed up. He just wrote and sent them and let them go." Shaq was quiet for a moment. "Did any of them ever come back?" he asked. Patricia smiled. It was a tired, full smile. The smile of a woman who had been carrying grief for a week and had just been handed something unexpected. "You're the first," she said. "That is who Raymond Earl Tillman was, and that is the story of the letter that traveled 35 years to find its way home. Before you go, drop a comment right now and tell us where you are watching from. New York, Nairobi, London, Manila, wherever you are, we want to know. We read every single one, and we love seeing how far these stories travel. If this moved you even a little, hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second, and it helps this story reach someone who really needs to hear it today. Share this video with one person. Just one, a teacher, a coach, someone who wrote a letter and never heard back. Because kindness that travels 35 years deserves to travel a little further, and if you are new here, welcome. Subscribe and tap that bell. We bring you stories like this every single week. Real moments that remind you the world still has good people in it. Now click on the video on your screen, because the next story will stop you completely. We will see you there.